Welcome to Y'all Ain't Right, a podcast about Mississippi politics with Robert Johnson and Brandon Jones. On today's show, we'll discuss the guilty pleas of Jody Owens and Antar Lumumba, a snag for data center developers seeking permits in Mississippi, how Kentucky's governor has asked Kentucky's senior senator to prove he can still do the job, and we'll have an update on redistricting in Mississippi. Y'all Ain't Right is proudly sponsored by Chisholm Strategies, a leading direct voter contact firm rooted in the South with decades of experience helping campaigns from the courthouse to the White House reach, persuade, and mobilize voters. So, Robert, you went with seersucker.
Yeah,
You're showing me up.
Every once in a while, I'll step out in my, plantation guard, whatever the hell you want to call it. Anyway, I was at the Capitol today. We had a hearing, so
Yeah.
I would never wear this to court. I know some people do. Well, I was at the Capitol, and I just thought, put on a jacket and some.
This is a leisure wear.
This is leisure. Yeah.
Well, I'm dressed in my White Sox black because this is the week of the trade deadline.
Oh, okay.
Coming off big victory in Tampa. So
You would be a White Sox fan, not a Cubs fan.
Absolutely.
I'm a Cardinals fan, by the way.
Well, I don't know. Somehow it all tracks.
Yeah.
Here we are. So we've got a lot to cover today, including this topic, which, you and I were talking off air. Not an easy one for us to talk about, but one that we sort of committed to doing whenever we started doing this show. The Mississippi Free Press and others reported last Wednesday that the Mississippi Supreme Court has permanently disbarred former Hinds County District Attorney Jody Owens. Owens had requested that he be disbarred with prejudice. This follows Owens' June 29 guilty plea to federal conspiracy charges and his resignation as DA. The charges, of course, stem from a 2024 FBI bribery sting, which targeted several high-profile Jackson officials, including Mayor Chokwe Antar Lumumba, City Councilman Aaron Banks, and Councilwoman Angelique Lee. Owens and Lumumba are set to be sentenced by Judge Dan Jordan on October 15th. So like I said, this is a tough one. We know most everybody involved here. How is this news landing with you? What are your thoughts on this?
I know everybody involved, but the mayor, Antar Lumumba, I knew him better than I knew Banks and Angelique Lee. But Jody was a good friend of mine and still is a good friend of mine. And I like the mayor as well. It bothers me and it concerns me. And they were both brilliant young men with great promise. And I hate to see this happen to them, but there's a way to govern, there's a way to provide public service, and this is not the way.
Yeah, I had a personal relationship with the mayor and district attorney, more acquaintances with the council members, but had moments where you could have convinced me that either one was either, headed for bigger things,
oh,
was going to be a major political figure in our state.
Yeah.
And I had a lot of expectation in them, and really they were skillful people. I mean, it wasn't simply, that they won. It was that these were impressive individuals with promise. It seems to me that as lawless and sort of out of sorts our political environment is today, that for folks like us who find, runaway corruption in the White House, runaway corruption by this administration and Republican leadership, it just seems to me that if we're going to have any credibility in that conversation, we have to be honest whenever people who we might like or admire or have friendships with, whenever they cross the line, and just to be honest about that and to say, look, it's an unfortunate event. We're not trying to defend anybody whenever they act unlawfully. That doesn't mean that we can't pray for them, that we can't care about them, that we can't wish things were different. But it just seems to me we have not seen, in the face of some of the most corrupt government action probably in our nation's history, many Republicans who have been willing to just be honest about that and to reckon with that and to be truthful about what that looks like. Now, what we're talking about here is not on the scale of what this administration has done, but it's unlawful acts, happened outside the line. They pled guilty. And look, I hate it, but it's also just part of the facts we have to reckon with.
So this is a podcast and we deal with news, and we need to talk about it. I knew Jody extremely well, and we used to joke about the fact that both of us grew up cattle family. We were both cowboys, so to speak. And I used to tell him he wasn't shit because he was a Terry cowboy. You got to be from Natchez to be a real cowboy. So we used to joke back and forth about that. But it's sort of the kind of things that guys go back and forth about. And sometimes, men get consumed by power and their ego and get carried away. And that's a little bit of that. But let me say this, and I'm going to be careful how I say this, but this was an FBI sting. I mean, this was, with officials that were literally trying to speed up the process of doing some development in Jackson, 150, maybe $200,000 involved. And, we're still looking for the 77, 88, or depending on who you talk to, $200 million that the state lost in that Department of Human Services.
Yes, TANF scandal.
That TANF scandal. And so my question is, if the FBI is going to do a sting, seems like there are places where a whole lot more public money involved that there ought to be a sting in. But that's fine. They shouldn't have done it. It was a waste of valuable human capital in my community to do something that really amounted to not much of anything. And so, yeah, it's unfortunate, but, they are now set to pay their debt to society, and hopefully there's some level of redemption, and they'll come back and find a way to be contributors somewhere.
They both have that potential, and they both have a long life ahead of them, hopefully, and including the council members.
Yes, absolutely.
There's no reason that this can't be a first act and other things behind that.
I'm not just being hopeful. I'm confident it will be. I think there's going to be a place where they can make a contribution, and I'm praying for all of them and hopeful that's going to happen. And when that time comes, I want to be here and be around to help support their effort to do some good.
Yeah. But what we can't do, no matter if it was anybody, no matter how close they are to us, what we can't do in a society where people rely on their district attorney and their mayors to make decisions on the basis of the community is to blindly defend wrongdoing. And that's what we've seen too much of.
Well, we're not doing that. We're not doing that.
That's what I think is important about it.
Well, and I think that's why we're talking about it. I want people to know that we're not, as I said, Jody is a friend of mine. I'm not absolving him of responsibility, and I'm not making excuses. I just want people just need to know that there's a process, and they're going through it. And there's also a period of redemption, and we need to be here when that happens. But right now, they did a wrong, and they're going to pay for it.
Well, and more than one thing can be true at the same time. I mean, I remember whenever I started off my legal career, there were a few people who I admired in Mississippi legal life because they had, I saw them as taking on special interests. I saw them as taking on, civil rights issues.
Yeah.
And a few of those people ended up in prison.
That's right.
A few of them ended up crossing the line.
They're lawyers, and and somebody asked me, well, why would Jody get permanently disbarred? They've been permanently disbarred.
Yeah.
He was and they weren't elected public servants.
Yeah.
There's a certain level of trust when you're an elected public servant. And I think Jody Owens understands that. I think he's going to be okay.
Well, we forget sometimes that, like, as adults, you have to hold some tension. Sometimes I can care about you deeply, and I can still be honest with you and say, this was a mistake. And I think we've lost a little bit of that in the way that we evaluate issues sometimes.
It's like, look, you can
wear one jersey. That doesn't mean that every illegal act someone commits in your jersey should be washed away because they're on your team.
That's right.
That's a childlike way to look at the world.
Yeah.
Wrong is wrong and right is right.
Yeah.
And you can maintain that clarity while still having a viewpoint.
Now, if you work for President Trump, I don't know about whether or not you can do that.
I don't know if you can. No, I mean, clearly not. So, well, look, the Mississippi Independent is a great news source, and it's on Substack. And they published a story last week about Ag Commissioner Andy Gipson. He's going to require data center developers to disclose their water, energy, air quality, and financial details to his office. This follows him raising questions about AI and data centers in the Scrum after his speech at the Neshoba County Fair. I thought this was significant because he's one of 7 members of the Mississippi Department of Environmental Quality Permit Board.
He's on the permit.
And they issue, for people who might not know, environmental permits for any company that comes in to build something that might touch environmental matters. So it's interesting because this puts him at odds with the governor, puts him at odds with the speaker, because they have all given sort of resounding, yes, come on in. It's also interesting.
And even some people in the city of Jackson.
Sure.
Have said, come on in. And they're not considering that data centers, even a mid-level data center, uses as much power in a year as a community of 150,000 people. People need to know that. And the land it takes up, some of them take up as much as 225 acres of land. And, when they came to the legislature to approve the building of the data center in Madison and all these tax incentives we gave them, they said, we're going to create 1,000 jobs. The largest data center in the country doesn't have 1,000. It has less than 400 jobs. And that's in Virginia, which is, the state of Virginia is known as the data capital of the country, of the world. world. And so, but they came and said that, and it doesn't. Now, it'll create some jobs for 2 or 3 years, the building of it and the developing of it and all that'll happen, but it's not labor intensive. And so it doesn't create that many jobs. But what it will do, it almost triples the revenue in terms of the tax base that you bring into the community. So there's some considerations to make. The thing that needs to happen, God, I don't believe I'm saying this, but Andy Gipson is right. Andy Gipson is right.
You heard it here.
You heard it? Yeah, right. Don't tell Andy I said it. But Andy Gipson is right. There needs to be careful consideration. Look, you either want a data center if you don't, but if you want a data center, there ought to be some parameters that you put in place to make sure that the community is not hurt by what it does. And that can be in terms of how much money that the data center brings in or how much property tax that they pay. All those things need to be considered because you need to be able to balance the cost.
Yeah.
In terms of what it's going to cost people.
It did feel a little bit like breaking news. Man does his job. It's like,
yeah,
all he really did was what he should do.
Right.
You should ask for all of those considerations. I mean, anytime somebody's, making all of these assertions and you need to find some way to validate some of it. And then make sure you're protecting your community.
But this is the other thing. Isn't it strange that when a person does what they're supposed to do, they say, oh my God, he's not a Republican or Democrat, he's a populist. Well, you're a populist because you do your job? That's the new term. Everybody is a populist. And in the Democratic circles, you're a Democratic socialist if you believe people ought to have fair housing or they ought to be able to have child care if they're going to work every day. So
radical. Radical ideas.
Yeah.
So he's one of 7. So even if they comply with this and let's say he votes against them, these data centers are still likely to pass. I'm assuming we're going to be dealing with data centers in some form or fashion.
But all of them are local. The important thing about what Andy Gipson is requiring data centers to do is what every board of supervisors should do before they say okay to a data center coming into their community, or any city should do, because some of them bypass the county. Some of them may be located in a city, but those city council people should look at what the Agricultural Commissioner is saying and require those things to happen. But I want to bring out something, and people need to be aware of this. There was a move in the legislature. Did we talk about this already?
I don't think
there was a move in the legislature last session that the chairman of Ways and Means sponsored a bill that said that if you get a data center, then 80% of the revenue needs to come back to the state and you only keep 20. And I said, well, what about the data center in Madison County? Or they get grandfathered in. But all these new data centers that will be developed, those communities would lose that revenue to the state of Mississippi. Oh, we got to pay for infrastructure. I tell you what, I will pay for my own infrastructure. Let me keep the money that I have for my county, because you're not going to reimburse me for the water it uses or the increase in utility rates that'll happen, or the land that it takes up, or the roads that it tears up. You're not going to do that.
Yeah.
I don't know what you call it. When you looking me in the face and saying, yeah, you're going to have a data center. Yeah, it's going to generate about $55 million a year to your community. They'll help you with roads and schools and hospitals and whatever. I want it.
Sure. And certainly anytime our chairman of Ways and Means has had an opportunity to feather his own nest or send some, largesse up his way.
Oh, yeah.
Whether it be in his neighborhood or in his school district or whatever the case may be.
Well, when you sponsor legislation to cut $500 million out of the state revenue budget and then follow it up with another tax cut that's going to cut, what, $3 to $4 billion over the long run that you won't have to work with. You got to figure out how to fill that space. And if you're going to build data centers in Adams County, Warren County, give me your money. So
right.
Everybody tries to cover themselves when they make a mistake. So I think what they've done is a mistake.
You got the environmental consideration. You've got the jobs consideration.
Yeah.
And then you've got the tax consideration. Now we are all, each of us, experiencing inflation and rising cost in different ways. We're paying more for everyday goods. My understanding is that it's already accepted that these data centers are going to cause people to pay higher costs for it.
Well, they don't have to, because in some states.
Not them, but us.
I know, but in some states, they're requiring it. People have been educated about. They watched what happened in Virginia and some other places, California and other places they've been introduced. And so you can actually put into place that there'll be a higher utility tax on the data centers where it won't be borne by the community. Your rates don't have to go up. They'll pay more money. And even with the water, they need to find other ways to cool their systems. If you're smart enough to create a data center that'll do chat GPT and all these things, you ought to be able to find a way to air cool your server.
I got you. You're expecting that in this case, there will be some provision in there that protects the ratepayer.
It should be. It can be done.
But we just don't know yet.
We don't know yet. It should be required, yes.
Okay. Well, we need to watch that because that to me is another hidden cost of all this.
Well,
if at the end of the day, ratepayers are having to pay more.
They do.
Because of the toll this is taking on the energy grid.
You can make the data center bear that cost.
Okay.
Because they're going to make a ton
we're not
of money.
A place that tends to do that.
But look.
I mean, we don't typically.
That's why you don't need the state of Mississippi, the chairman of Ways and Means, or the speaker, or the lieutenant governor, or the governor telling you how to bring your data center in. The good thing about what the Department of Environmental Quality and Andy Gipson are doing is that they're laying a roadmap for local communities to say, this is how we want to do this because this is where it won't hurt us. I mean, we can enjoy the spoils of having a data center without it costing us too much money.
Well, Andy Gipson, environmental warrior. You know, you really out there.
I'm going to regret this. I'm telling you, this is going to come back.
Look, we call it like we said. He made a good call.
He has his moments. I served with him in the legislature. He comes up with a good one every once in a while.
Yeah, we'll give him credit for this.
Yeah.
I wanted to talk to you about this. I don't know how you feel about it, but Politico reported that Kentucky Governor Andy Beshear said Senator Mitch McConnell should resign if he can't directly and verbally address the people of Kentucky with proof of his capacity to serve. Of course, McConnell fell several weeks back. He's been out of the public eye since then. Last week, Beshear wrote a letter to McConnell where he said, during that time, you have cast 0 votes, engaged in no official activities, and aside from 2 photos and corresponding statements, made no effort to communicate with your Kentucky constituents or the nation. Beshear also urged Senate Majority Leader John Thune to investigate McConnell's condition, saying if you are unwilling to voluntarily show that you still have the capacity to serve, then, of course, there should be some investigation. So this has been repeated. He's been on podcasts, done other statements. Today was the deadline where the state would have to call a special election to fill a vacancy. Naturally, McConnell did not resign or step aside. There's this event called the Fancy Farm Picnic in Kentucky, where every politician across the state gets together.
Yeah.
Picnic goers this weekend were chanting, "Where's Mitch?" All right, so we're not in Kentucky, and this is a national item, but you and I have dealt with kind of these decisions about when it's time to go. When is it time to step down? Do these jobs belong to the people of Kentucky or does it belong to Mitch McConnell? Mitch has played the game really well for Republican leadership. You may remember Barack Obama tried to make
don't remind me, please.
And McConnell stopped it.
Yes.
And he was very deft at holding on to Republican control in the Senate, on the Supreme Court. And now we're at a situation where it looks like he can't do the job. I mean, just by all appearances, seems pretty clear. I think Beshear might be onto something here, but yet again, we have him holding on to it. So I'm just curious, like when you think about power, it can either be in the context of this story or some others. What are your thoughts on folks holding on to political jobs after they've lost the ability to do the job?
Look, I'm a Democrat.
Yeah.
We kicked Joe Biden to the curb, and he was showing up for work every day. But because he tipped when he walked or because he stuttered, which he's been doing all his life, we said we need to replace him. We're also the party that kept, Dianne Feinstein in office till she could we had to roll her out of there. I mean, just so we could keep a vote. So it would be, I think Beshear is onto something. I think it would be disingenuous for him not to demand the same thing of Mitch McConnell that we demanded of our own people. That needs to happen. And we did it of Joe Biden. We didn't do it with Dianne Feinstein. Certainly, you don't need to have people in office who can't cognitively do their job, can't show up for work, take a vote, can't debate a bill, can't read it unless somebody tells them what to do. I think that's the most responsible thing to do. We're in a pivotal point in terms of power, in terms of the Senate and the House.
Narrow
margins. And look, if I was a Democrat where he is, I'd have Mitch McConnell wherever he is, as long as he's breathing, I'd be counting his vote. I'm just telling you, because there's such a narrow margin of power, that's how it works. But Beshear is exactly right. That's what we should do. Now, I don't know if you're setting me up. I've been in the legislature for 34 years.
Yeah.
Somebody's saying, well, hell, it's time for him to go home. I mean, I think there is a point. This situation with Mitch McConnell makes it even worse. We can't see him.
Right.
We really don't know if he's dead or alive. Do you know?
No, no, of course. No, I don't think anybody does. Yeah. Well, yeah, that's funny. So, yeah, Robert, this was a setup. I was hoping that you would submit the term limits bill for this.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
No, anybody who watches the show can see you're still vibrant and active, got plenty left to give.
Yeah.
But no, I think it brings up to me, and, I thought about this whenever Justice Bader Ginsburg died.
No, that was frustrating.
The way that
not that she died, but why wouldn't she leave early enough for the president to be able to appoint someone?
Well, it does not take away from the fact that some of the people we've mentioned are superlative figures and gave superlative service.
Absolutely.
But I do think this question of who do these jobs belong to?
Well, they belong to people.
And I don't care how much affinity you might have for an individual, how much you might like them at a certain time. At the end of the day, this is the people of Kentucky's Senate seat.
Yeah.
And if they have someone who cannot perform that job, that's a consideration. You and I have had to have sensitive conversations with people in Mississippi politics about whether or not it was time to step down, or whether or not it was time to consider. And some of those have been successful and very painful and hard for that person to make. And then some of them have been where they told us to jump off a cliff and they went for it anyway.
Right.
And I just think it's worth every once in a while pausing and saying, look, these jobs belong to the people. The job is more important than the individual holding it for that period of time. I mean, the office and respect for that office. I guess I just saw the story and thought, I'm glad this question is being raised. It can seem indelicate, but it's actually the right question to raise.
Well, the governor raising the question, what I would hope it would do is excite voters, excite them to the extent that somebody made them remember that's your Senate seat and you should demand. The governor asking for it is one thing, but them being able to demand that, you need to either put up or shut up. We elected you. We elected you because we liked you. We wanted you to be our senator. But if you can't do the job anymore, give us an opportunity to get somebody in there who can.
Yeah.
But the voters have to do that. And it speaks to the apathy in the voting community. We don't hold people accountable enough.
Well, I think, too, as partisans, we can tend to cheer for our team. Like you said a moment ago, look, if Democrats were benefiting
they
have benefited.
They've done it.
And if the shoe were on the other foot now, there would be a tendency and a compunction toward, well, good.
Yeah.
We're benefiting from the math here. I don't think that's good. I think we ought to rethink that.
Right.
I think sometimes you just have to say, have we gone a little bit crazy with the way that we look at this stuff? I mean, sometimes you have to step back and say, look, if you can't do the job, come on home.
Yeah.
This ain't a life sentence to term of service.
Yeah.
Do your service and then go back to, whenever you get to a situation like this, then be willing to let it go. Don't just cling it.
Yeah. Well, it's like my wife tells me all the time, you've been there a long time, you're still doing a good job, but they will not roll you out of there. We're taking you home before they have to do that.
Maybe that's something too. Maybe there's something about responsible leadership that surrounds yourself with people who can tell you hard things.
Yes.
Whether it be in your family, friend group, your peers, whatever that may, advisors, whatever that may look like, cultivating a group that can be honest with you.
Yes.
Even when you don't want to hear it.
Yeah, but people don't do that.
Yeah.
People don't do that. The Bible says something about, a wise man has good counsel. It illustrates the fact that no matter who you are, you need to have people around you who will tell you the truth. And I try to keep people like that around me. But sometimes what takes precedent over that is maintaining power and maintaining, a certain leverage for some people.
Yeah, it's tough.
Yeah.
I mean, look, it's not easy to hear the truth. It's not easy to hear hard truths we don't want to hear.
Right.
And especially whenever you start to see these jobs as an extension of yourself. I'm sure in Senator McConnell's case, it's probably hard for him to contemplate life without being a senator from Kentucky.
Last time I saw him, I don't know if he's contemplating it.
Well, I mean,
somebody's making that decision.
And that's the issue.
Yeah.
We record this on Monday afternoon, and this afternoon we took a little bit of time because there was a joint redistricting and reapportionment committee hearing, and we didn't want to miss any of the exciting and important and substantive things happening there. This organizational meeting kicked off at 2:00.
Yeah.
And if you joined the live stream at 2:17, you were too late.
You were done.
Because it was over.
Yeah.
You were in person.
Yes.
You were live and in the building.
Right.
Give us your, what you learned.
There's been a lot of fanfare about the whole redistricting thing. And the governor talked about, we're going to get rid of the tyrannical service of
Benny Thompson has been running Mississippi too long. We got to stop this.
Right.
It's unbelievable.
Which is a joke.
He just sets all the policy around here.
Right. I actually came there thinking there would be some fireworks and people would be talking about what we need to do. All they did was elect a chair, a vice chair, and set the time for some public hearings. That part of it, actually, I didn't think would happen, but
that was notable.
Yeah.
Tell us what that kind of sounds like.
The context is that there is a law, a statute that requires that every 10 years after a decennial census, that the Mississippi legislature appoint a joint committee, House and Senate, to do redistricting. And on their own volition, the state Senate and the state House began to require that we do public hearings, that we just don't sit in the room, draw lines and decide how people's districts will be. We will go around the state taking input from people in local communities about how they feel about their representation and how they feel about having districts redrawn. So the statute requires, the statutes shall do this every 10 years after the decennial census. So there is some idea that if it says every 10 years, why are we doing it mid-season?
Because it's 2026. For people who might not be aware of that, it's 2026. So we haven't had the census, which will be coming up at the end of this, this 10-year period.
And so we're doing it because the president, after Callais, the president says, well, even before Callais, he was calling on people to do a redistricting. We have too many Democrats. We got to elect more Republicans. And then when Callais came down, everybody started talking about, let's do a redistricting. They said we do it along party lines. We can't do it based on race. People publicly came out, Republicans did, and said, we need to get rid of Democrats. We need to get them. We need to have as many Republicans as we can get. Okay, fine. The problem in the state of Mississippi, and you and I have talked about this, is that, hell, they did that 20 years ago in the state of Mississippi. They literally came in and drew lines that created supermajorities in the state of Mississippi in the House and the Senate, Republican and Democrat. When the state is 40% African American, and they say it's not about race, when they acknowledge, go to any film of the Neshoba County Fair in the last 5 or 6 years, and they'll tell you, if you elect a Democrat, then you won't get anything. That came from the Speaker of the House, and people continue to talk about that. Well, 95% of the African-American population in the state of Mississippi are Democrats. And so you can say you're not doing it on race, but if you're Democrat or Republican, you're doing it on race. What they've done is, if African-Americans who are 95% of them are Democrats, make up 40% of the state, but we only make up, in terms of leadership in the House of Representatives and in the Senate, it's in
the 30s.
In the 30s, we're not even close. It's much less than 40.
Let me slow walk that, because I think that's important for listeners to know.
Right.
So whenever we say that Republicans have effectively gerrymandered the Mississippi legislature prior to this summer's Supreme Court ruling, what we mean by that is, if you just take the black voting age population of our state right now, which is at that 38 to 39% area, and you compare that to the percentage of black representatives and senators in the House and Senate in the Mississippi legislature, it's lower than that number.
That doesn't come close to the population breakdown.
That's before Callais.
That's before Callais.
So right now, at this moment, before they draw a single line, they have already limited black voting power to the fullest extent of their ability, including at times against the Constitution. Let's not forget, we only have 3 new black members in the Senate because the courts forced them to do. And they were about to force them to redraw lines in the Supreme Court, which they haven't drawn since 1987, which is another thing I was thinking about while you were talking. So let me get this straight. The same bunch that hasn't found the time to redraw its major court lines since the 80s, since I was in elementary school, they haven't found the time to go touch that. All of a sudden, it's just, we got to get out there. Dean Kirby and the boys, they're coming to your hometown. We got to start drawing.
And this is not just impacting congressional districts. It's legislative districts, supervisor districts, city councils.
So you expect counties and cities to follow?
Well, there's some that are going to do that. A former member, Herb Frierson, was somewhere on social media saying, in his county, look, you got to redraw these lines. The Voting Rights Act is not in effect anymore. We got to do something. I'm like,
he's always been a stalwart for truth, justice, and the American way.
He's a populist.
Good to hear him.
He's a populist.
Good populist leader. What do we think the effect of these hearings are? Like, if you're talking to people out there who live in these communities who might have a chance to go to these hearings, I guess you would say, show up at the hearing, make your voice.
Absolutely. I would say show up at the hearing, but I also would, I hope what people would talk about is, what am I getting out of the representation that I have now? What am I getting out of this polarization that we have in the state of Mississippi? If I'm at a hearing, I want to raise the question of what you and I have talked about. So if you have opportunity districts, this means that there are going to be African-American districts and Democratic districts that are not 75%, that may be 55%. What do you get? You get people who have to talk to everyone and have to deal with issues every time they talk about something. They just can't be, oh, I'm black, or I'm Democrat, or I'm I'm Republican and I'm white. No, I want to know whether or not you're going to be dealing with issues concerning my infrastructure, my health care, my schools, my housing, my public safety. I want to know what you're doing. And that does not happen in a lot of communities right now. And I hope these hearings will highlight that. Because I'm going to tell you, legislators, Republicans, and probably going to be some Democrats are saying, leave this alone, don't touch it. Because they like what they have now. They like this comfortable, polarized issue because now all they have to do is deal with red meat issues. Oh, I just want to make sure I keep girls out of boys' bath. Boys out of girls. I want to make sure that we don't kill babies, or I want to make sure that we don't have too many people coming into this country illegally. But those are not the issues that are the most important, most salient, most impactful issues for the state of Mississippi. We need roads and bridges. God knows we need more doctors. There's only one pediatrician.
Tort reform didn't give us all the doctors.
Oh, that's right.
I thought we'd already solved it.
No, I thought we solved it. There were going to be more doctors. And my doctor friend said, did your insurance, did your liability rates go down? No, they went. So my thing is that these are the kind of things we want people to talk about. And I hope in these public hearings, people start talking about issues and representation and what we need to improve on. That's what usually happens if you can get people to show up at these hearings. Yeah.
And then these people do respond to that type of thing.
Oh, they do.
Look, maybe the best thing we have for good government, our best hope for good government is Mississippi, is for people to raise their voice.
Yes.
Because as bad as things can seem sometimes, I have still seen virtually every person we've talked about today change their position when they've come under pressure from their voting.
It never fails. My job as a legislator, our job as public servants or interested people who are voters, you and I.
Yeah, my job as an advocate.
Is to say, show up at these hearings.
Get out there.
Get out there and let people know how you feel about something.
Sir, we do not need more extremists.
Right. We don't.
Please do not give us someone who's crazier than the last guy.
Absolutely.
I don't need somebody to be farther to the right of this joker I'm already having to contend.
Exactly. Or farther to the left.
Either way.
I'll be fair on that. Yeah, farther to the left.
Let's have people that are responsive to the needs of the community and not trying to outdo somebody in their own party.
And let's not treat this as like it's Robert Johnson's job because he's my representative, or it's Dean Kirby's job because he's the chairman of this committee, or Noah Sanford, or whoever, or Tracy Rosebud, or whoever's on the committee. It's your job. Don't let them make a decision. You come out and make it.
Yeah, that's right.
I try to encourage people to do that because I've seen it work. I've told people, person can't stab you in the back if you're looking them in the face. And the only way they can stab you in the back is you don't show up at the Capitol. You don't show up at meetings and tell them this is how I feel about something. People in my community, they show up because I grew up there.
Right.
They've known me all my life. Well, some of them, they're slowly dying off. They've known me all my life. But the point is, I have family. I'm integrated in the community. They know who I am. Yeah, I know.
Title of this, Robert Johnson Contemplates Life Issues.
Look, the older you get, the more the more you contemplate your mentality. So I'm going to just tell you, yeah.
I think that's really good, and I think that it's probably something worth doing to tell people some of the cities that we know they're coming to. I know I heard Gulfport. I heard Natchez. Do you remember some of the others?
Cleveland, Tupelo, Hattiesburg, Meridian, Senatobia.
Okay. Mississippi Today will have it on their website.
Right.
I'll bet the Mississippi legislative page will have it somewhere.
It will.
On there.
It will.
I have to click a few times.
Now, look, I passed the schedule out to at least 3 reporters.
Okay, good. As soon as we're back up, we'll make sure and tell people when it's coming.
Right.
All right. Thanks.
Are we done?
I think we
can't talk about Dr. Fauci or the fact that the president can't remember whether or not we're at a war or we're not in a war, or whether or not there's a ceasefire and there's not. He said they're in negotiations. I know I'm going to get over that.
No, there's a lot going on. But thanks, Robert.
I just have so much fun just sitting here.
Look, this is fun for me. I appreciate you doing it.
No, we got a lot to talk about.
Grateful for people listening. Emily, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
If you liked this episode, please give it a 5-star rating on your podcast app and subscribe. You can also find us on social media. Y'all Ain't Right is produced by Emily Henderson and sponsored by Chisholm Strategies. You can send show ideas or complaints to hello@y'allain'trightpod.com. We'll be back next week with another episode. Until then, take care.
Bye.